What's up, guys? So, back in the van, working on transit part 2 here. So this is going to be, let's see, in this video we're going to do holes for windows, window install, fan installs, and the roof here, fan, AC, Maxxfan. And then possibly cut the shower 6-inch Maxxfan, but I might save that for later down the line. Probably the solar port hole, that's just a small hole, and install windows is the idea. So we'll try and get that going. Otherwise, also might get to installing the finish floor and then getting that covered up after the fact. Yeah, let's get cutting. I'm going to try out that drill mounted nibbler, see how that works, and I'll throw links in the description to all the tools and whatever products I use too. I think that drill mounted nibbler will work pretty well, but we'll find out. So for each of these, when I go to do this, I'm going to drill, when I'm confident, I'm going to remeasure everything probably. When I'm confident where these are going, I'm going to drill 1/8 inch hole at each corner on the fan and the AC. And from there, I'm going to go onto the roof and trace out where I want to cut. And I'm only doing this because I don't like getting rained on with little half moons of death. And if you've ever used nibbler on metal, so hop on the roof, take care of it. So it's just easier to mark it out originally down here and then go up to the roof, because that way you know you're dodging your ribs and stuff like that. After I do each 1/8 inch hole at each corner, trace it onto the roof, then I can drill in the middle of that down with say a 1-inch hole saw, something like that. That will let me get the nibbler in there, and then I can start going through that. So I'll show you that in the process too. So one thing to keep an eye out for when you're up here is, first of all, bring some cardboard up and put them under your knees. If you think about like what your knees will do to a piece of cardboard, it'll kind of dent it. You can see that dent after the fact. The sheet metal of the vans is no different. This stuff is so thin that if you want your roof to stay nice and not have little puddles and stuff like that, be careful to stay right where there's a rib to support you, and also bring up some cardboard, like I said, because that'll help reduce and distribute the load, as well as possibly keep scratching down. This is the drill mounted nibbler here. I'll show you how I'm going to use that, and it seems like a really good tool for pretty minimal money. Again, link in the description for that. But yeah, this is a kind of a point of no return step here, so cut your holes in the right spot. Definitely the drill mounted nibbler works, obviously. Definitely doesn't work as smooth or keep you in a straight line as much as a dedicated nibbler like the Makita plug-in electric one. So take that with a grain of salt. If you're using it just for your one van build, whatever else, I'd say the drill mounted nibbler is a good option. Doesn't scratch up outside of your cut. So basically I'm just going to come and touch any raw metal up with some either rust bullet or por 15 and get that kind of primed. Clean up with a vacuum up here with a brush attachment, get all the stuff picked up. Gonna have to sweep up in the van quite a bit, but the upside with the nibbler versus say a grinder or a jigsaw or whatever else you can think of, a grinder is going to throw sparks into the van, which I learned the hard way. That can melt. All right, so there might be a gap in some of the footage there. I had a bit of a camera malfunction, overheated, and shut off on me in the middle of filming. So, but you should get an idea with the nibbler on what I'm talking about, how to use it, whatever else. I used the nibbler for this and then just cleaned it up with a flapper wheel. The nibbler is nice because it doesn't heat up nearly as much as a grinder or anything like that. Again, doesn't throw any sparks, does leave some sharp bits, but overall, it leaves you a pretty nice clean area and doesn't heat up, so it doesn't melt the paint going around it really. I touched this up with some white primer. Right now I'm just prepping to install the windows. This is something that you want to be kind of precise about and quick with. So you'll see me set this up in advance. I'll have it all taped off. These are glue-in AM Auto or AMA windows. These are a 40 by 15 slider, which is kind of bigger than a lot of the ones you'll see on a lot of van builds. I think it'll be a really good window for this van. It's kind of a little bit more height to it, so should let some more light in. But also, since this van is so tall, I'm 6'2", 6'3", and it's just barely at eye level where you're going to be able to see in there. So you'd have to be pretty tall to look in there, at least if you're close to the van. So that's kind of nice from a privacy standpoint. So now that that's prepped, I got 3 suction cups here. Those will help hold the glass too. Now that that's set up, I'm gonna go prep the glass. So what we're using is Beta Seal U428. 3M window weld is another popular option. This comes with the tips. I like this stuff. It's DuPont stuff. It works well. Then we're also using a Astro pneumatic air caulking gun. This works well if you have a compressor. You don't need a big compressor to run it or anything like that. It's just pressurizing it. You can get a nice even bead. You do have to move pretty quick. What you're looking for a tip is to just basically snip it flat off and then cut a V shape into it. And then you're gonna use this right upright and leave that V behind you as you go. On these windows, what I'm looking for is to leave about a ½ inch on the outside so it doesn't, when it compresses, so that it doesn't squirt out to the outside because it's a nightmare to clean up. So I'm going to go pretty close to the inside edge here. My window holes are nice and tight, so I shouldn't have any issue there. If yours are, if you cut them and they're oversized or whatever else, you might want to go a little bit towards the outside. You might have to clean up though. This stuff does come out quick. And another tip is to start at the bottom of your window. So your joint is at the bottom, not at the top where it could collect water. Also, if you do have an overlapping joint, you want to overlap it. Say it's on the side here. You want to overlap it so that the top comes on top outside of the bead going inside here. So if rainwater ran down, it would run past that junction rather than into it. If that makes any sense. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start a little bit offset from center here. And like I said, it comes out pretty quick. And then as I go, this stuff is really thick, so it's not too much of a concern with it running or anything like that. But as I go, I rotate it. This would be nicer to do on a table, something similar, but I'm kind of limited on space in the shop right now. This stuff is a nightmare to clean up though, so be careful. It will kind of run out, and make sure that that's not exposed and gonna get stepped in or tracked into the van or anything like that, because that can be bad news. If you do have a joint like that, like I said, just try and make sure it overlaps nicely. That's way too much on that side, so wasn't moving. I got caught up on my microphone here. So I'm gonna have to go back and probably clean that up because that's gonna be definitely too much. Top row went nice. If you do need to, I like to make sure I have a good bead on here before I apply the windows, because I really don't like cleaning it up after the fact once it's on the van. So I usually take a fresh razor blade and just try and cut this. Basically what you're leaving is a V shape on here. So when you go back and put the window on, the V is what's making contact. So if, like in this case, it's going onto the van, which has a profile to it. It has shape in the side there, and the window is still flat. So I'm gonna grab a razor blade and clean some of this up. You have a pretty good amount of working time with this, so don't be too worried about that. You have at least a half hour to get this on the van. Again, read whichever sealant you go with and make sure that's the case with whatever you're using. It doesn't really cut so much as just kind of bunch up, but any excess, grab some spare paper towels and get it off there. And the amount you want just is depending on your sealing surface, as in how much of a profile you have on the van, because since it is profiled, the center is going to push in the most, so that should make contact first. The outside edges, top and bottom, might need more to make full contact and seal well. So the sides where it's making contact first, you can get away with having a little bit less. And like I said, if you can clean it up after the fact, it is not fun though. So if you can get a nice even, this would be a really nice job to do on a turntable actually, because you could just spin the piece as you do it. If you have somebody to help you, you could do it that way too, and that would make it a lot easier. Have somebody else spin it while you lay it down. If Marcus were around, I would have him do that, but he's at home tonight. So you'll see I'm taking some fairly large globs off of here just because I definitely bunched it up more than I would have liked. All right, I'm feeling good about what we got left here. We'll get you close up. The top and bottom, pretty nice. So this, it's kind of hard to differentiate actually because I got a nice bead there, but there's a bead all the way down the length of it. It'll be easier to tell where it's messy right here. So that's about the gap you want to leave all the way around. And yeah, we'll get the window over to the van and then go from there. You want to be very careful with your windows, especially if you're doing this alone. Make sure you have the right one on the right side as well. It'd be nice to have the windshield install suction cups. I don't currently have a set, so I like to kind of find my one edge. And then get the window placed from there. want to make sure you try and get a nice even gap all the way around as you place it. Since this ceiling beta seal is so thick, you can get away with putting a decent amount of pressure on the window to get it to squat down. Then I like to get my tape on just as a temporary hold. Make sure it's not going to fall out on you. And then your suction cups are what are going to put the actual pressure on the glass to hold it in place. So I'm going to head in the van now and just make sure we're looking nice and even. Be nice if my lights were on. Okay. And I think we're looking pretty good all the way around here. I'll bring the camera in here and show that. Also, just a heads up, if you have your windows already, make sure you're test fitting the one that's going in the hole, because there can be variances window to window enough that it makes a difference. And it really sucks if you try and place this when it has glue on it and end up having to pull it back out to modify the hole more, because you already have, and you're contaminating it with the dust when you go to sand down the metal. We're looking pretty good. We got a nice even gap on the top side there. Windows nice and level in the van. So I got a 6-pack of these suction cups. I'm gonna do 3 on each window. They're kind of pricey for what they are. You'd think they'd be cheaper. The 6-pack was about 45 bucks on Amazon, I think. Put a link in the description for that, and the caulking gun and the beta seal. Yep. We're looking at 7/8 gap front and rear. Could come up a hair maybe, but within a 1/16 is all I'm looking for, tolerance wise. So this guy can go right here. Back these off. Get your suction cup stuck nice and tight. If you need to, you can throw some glass cleaner or something. It's another thing, you want to make sure your surface is all clean. Your van paint surface is all clean before you do this. I cleaned it with just didn't clean up high enough. Just a wet microfiber. You don't want these to fall off when this is curing. Could ruin your seal. Wouldn't be the worst idea if you were new to this to take all 6 of them and put them on one window, just to be sure. I'm good with 3. But make sure you have enough pressure to keep this cinched on there, but you don't want so much that it's going to glob out or touch, because they're made to have a little bit of a gap behind these windows. And they look pretty nice if they do. In this back corner, I think just the shape of the van, this back corner is poking out a little more than I'd like, so I'm going to move this over. And then before you go any further with your build, you also want to make sure you water test. So before you put wall panels in or ceiling panels or anything like that, take at least a hose, if not a pressure washer, once all this stuff is dry, and give it a good soaking from all angles. Make sure it's going to stay dry inside. This is the same stuff more or less that they'll glue in windshields with on cars. Crazy strong stuff. And once it's on there and set, you have to saw it out of there. So if you get it all the way around there, it's not much of a concern with it sealing. It's pretty much guaranteed to seal. So what I'm looking for here is be able to see it squishing into the van right here. If you have it squishing in all the way around, which is looking pretty good, then there shouldn't be any reason it won't seal. So, yeah, like I said, this corner's hanging out a little bit more, and I think it's just because of the profile of the van. It tapers a little bit at the back, so. But I think that suction cup should hold it. Once that stuff is dry, it's going to stay right where it was. Okay, other stuff that may have been missed with the camera issue was getting the fan installed. So I got the Maxxfan up here. The transits have a flat enough rib profile here that I was comfortable not making spacers to adjust for them. So I used butyl tape all the way around. You can see that right here, kind of coming through. And made sure that made contact and kind of squished out when you screw it in. I used zinc coated 3/4 inch self tappers all the way around for the flange. Make sure you paint or prime or rust bullet or pour 15, any bare metal. And then that's that. That works. This is the 7500K. So this has 10 speeds, thermostatic control. You can operate it manually or it power opens and closes. It is a really good fan. They're quite pricey, but they are nice. And then we have the Dometic RTX 2000 up here. So this took a little bit more creativity to mount. So I added some angle iron here. This is going to get painted just as some rust prevention. So angle iron that bows up, that helped keep the roof up. This unit is fairly heavy at about, I think about 70 pounds. And so with this being in the biggest span of the roof, it did bow down a bit. So that helped quite a bit. But as far as install, the install is very easy, and this is a really nice air conditioning unit. Comes with a nice hefty Anderson connector, comes with all your wiring, has low voltage cutoff, runs on 12 volts, very small profile. And in the Transit, I was a little worried about this hanging down too far, but in the Transit, with me being again 6'2", 6'3" in the high roof, I have still plenty of room to walk.